What's going on, good people? It's Will from High Caliber Firearms Training, and tonight I want to talk about the new Glock performance trigger. So if you're not familiar, Glock recently released their own trigger upgrade that is an OEM part. It just comes outside of the gun. As of right now, they're not going to be putting them in guns, but you can buy them aftermarket. All right, so what does it come with when you buy it? You're going to get a trigger shoe, your OEM bar. You're going to get a trigger housing because they've changed the way that the trigger bar interfaces with the components in the housing. So you're going to get all that and a dot connector, and it's going to run you $99, which isn't bad. I ordered mine directly from Glock on their store. I think they're sold out now, but I'm sure they'll be back in stock soon. So for the trigger, you know, the shoe, bar, and then the housing and a connector. Typically, if you buy a trigger, you just get the bar and the trigger shoe. So for $99, it's actually a fairly priced product, where others are typically a little over $100, and you don't get a housing or a connector unless you buy like the competition kit or something like that. So what's the difference between this trigger and what comes in a regular Glock trigger? Well, the performance trigger is automatically going to be a lot lighter. So mine out of the box was breaking right at 3.5 pounds, which, if you're not familiar, a stock trigger in the Glock is going to break somewhere around 5.5. So it's dramatically lighter. That can be good or bad depending on your preference and the circumstances. The break on it is also a lot more crisp than it is in the standard Glock, the OEMs. And I've tried almost every Glock trigger under the sun. The dot connector, the standard connector, the minus connector, MP3 coded connectors, the Yikes connectors, Ghosts, Zev, Johnny Glocks, the whole nine. I've tried them up and down the board, Apex, Overwatch Precision, in the whole nine. But this one, in my opinion, has a cleaner break than all of them, including the Timney. So this one is an upgrade over what is currently out on the market when you're talking about triggers. Again, with triggers, it's highly subjective because what you like in a trigger might not be what I like. I might want a crisp break. You might like a rolling break that's closer to a double action trigger. All right, so now, as I said before, the gun or the trigger system came at 3.5 pounds out of the box. I did not want that for carry, so I added the Glock Plus connector, which brought me back up to 5. Anywhere between 4, 4.5, and 5, I'm fine for a carry system. Personally, I don't like 3 pounds. I had a 3-pound trigger when I was deep into competition. I don't want that for a carry system because it just gives me a little less leeway. If I get my finger on the trigger and I get an adrenaline dump, I'm probably going to send around. So having it at 5, 4.5, 4, for me personally is that perfect weight, and I don't feel like it really affects me all that much, having the heavier trigger weight. So that's what I personally prefer. All right, so who is this trigger for? It's really for anyone that wants a different, or to change, I should say, the characteristics of how the trigger in their Glock breaks. All right. We have to remember that you can't buy skill, and it's about process over products. So if you have horrible fundamentals, you will still have horrible fundamentals with a lighter trigger. That's the same thing if you get a Walther or a Canik or some 2011 variant, you're going to have horrible fundamentals. So at the end of the day, if you can't shoot, you can't shoot, right? So you can't buy skill. This isn't going to make you better. Is it necessary? No. Is it better than the stock one? Yes and no. Yes, if you like a more predictable wall and break. Yes, if you like a crisper break. Yes, if you like a lighter trigger. If you don't like a lighter trigger, then no. So it really just depends on what you prefer as far as your trigger is concerned. Better is highly subjective. For what I like, it stands as an upgrade, 100%. But your mileage might vary depending on what you like. But I just want to drive home the point that you can't buy skill. If you suck, you suck. Buying a new trigger, buying a new gun is not going to make you not suck. And a lot of people want to try to buy their way towards proficiency, which is never going to happen. So what I'm going to do is show you the trigger itself. As you can see, it really doesn't look too much different from a stock Glock trigger until you examine it more closely. It does have a flat face, which I do prefer. That round edge on the stock Glocks on high round count days, when I would shoot 500-600 rounds, it would just start to wear into my finger. So I do prefer flat, just the way that feels. But break wise, it just is a lot crisper, and the break is shorter. There isn't as much creep. There's a good amount of pre-travel, but I don't care about that because for me, that gives me an opportunity to change my mind in a self-defense situation. If I'm shooting aggressively in a competition, I'm going to have it prepped already anyway. So that's not a big deal for me. Another added bonus is after the trigger actually breaks, it will reset. So you don't have to do the zip tie or the fold a piece of paper or cardboard trick to get your gun to reset, and you can get a bunch of trigger presses during dry fire. So that is an added bonus, but again, don't rush out and get this if you think it's going to make you a better shooter, because it's not. All right, process over products. Y'all be safe.